welcome to the January Donovan Show. I am excited to welcome a new friend and a new friend because we're connected in the social media world who caught my eye because she is a mom of 11, 8 boys, 3 girls. And I saw her channel and I just thought, how do you raise children that way? How do you create something so beautiful and inspiring? And that's really what um, drew me to your channel. And so I messaged you, I think, private. I'm like, I just want you to know this is so inspiring as a mom of 8. And so here we are. And I'm going to pick her brain and I'm going to, just harvest from her. And I hope that this podcast will be a place for you to harvest as well wisdom of a woman who's walked through it, who is also inspiring the world with her family. So, Brenda, welcome.
Thank you so much. I was so honored when you reached out and to find out you were a mom of many also.
Yes, I'm kind of in yours are your youngest is how old?
11.
11. So I'm almost just literally kind of my oldest is 16. So you walk the different seasons, which is why I was drawn to it because I think that we're not taught how to be mothers. It's not like there's a school for mothers. We no longer have the basic infrastructure of grandmother and aunt and proximity that we used to have, compounding with the fact that there's so many distractions. So really we're kind of on our own as women and as mothers. On top of that, I think there is sort of the second class citizens that is a subculture that mothers become, right? They're not sort of as valuable to society, which is really sad. And so I think to me, there's such a real renewal of redeeming the sacred gift of being a mom. And I think you embody that. So anyways, maybe you can start out with just giving us a little bit of your background as a mom, just a little kind of how many children, obviously, but just the age maybe, and how many years you've been married and kind of what you are doing in your own beautiful home right now.
Sure. Well, as a young girl, I had one of my best friends came from a family of 12. And every time I went to her house, it was so much fun to have all these people to play with and do things. There was always so much going on. And that's when my first dream started to be a mom of many. I wanted 12 kids. And so when I got married, my husband was like, "What? I'm not so sure about that, but we'll just take one at a time and see what happens," because he's just kind of chill that way. And I'm so thankful the Lord blessed us with 11. And I was living my dream come true for so many years. It's all I wanted was just to, raise a lot of children and enjoy life with them. That was my goal. And I didn't even realize how maybe a little unusual that was until I started getting all the questions. Because we are at the stage now, we've been married for 31 years. I have 8 sons and 3 daughters and 2 grandbabies and another one on the way. And it just is exactly what I envisioned. We enjoy each other, we enjoy life, and they've all just made me so proud. But I think it's because with that vision of having a lot of children, it wasn't just for that purpose only, but it was to raise warriors in this world. And so I poured my all into my heart and soul, and I'm just really, really thankful for all of them and the way they're turning out.
Wow, I love that you said you raise warriors. That's a very, I think, very specific definition because, most of us, we want to raise our children to be responsible adults, but just want to extract a little bit. What do you mean by warriors? Because I feel like we're in a spiritual battle and a lot of our audience would agree. How do you define that as a mom?
To me, it's just children who know what they believe and why they're here, what their purpose is, so they can make a difference.
Mm.
So we raise them to love the truth, love the word of God, and just to know who they are and be confident in that. Because without that, you really don't even know where to go or what to do. But they all know they are perfectly capable of doing anything they set their minds to, and they've all done amazing and powerful things already.
Yes, I have noticed your sons are entrepreneurs, and that's what drawn me. I was like, wow, look at these. I think the thing first that caught my eye was you were eating dinner together as a family,
Mhm.
which is honestly, sadly, it's unusual. Even good, faithful families no longer keep dinner sacred. And I'm sure there's a lot of different, variables, but it's really beautiful because your sons were grown. It wasn't like, it was a bunch of little children. They were there and it was together. And so Walk me back into your first few years of motherhood. What was that like? Was it a smooth transition? Was it a rude awakening? Because that's what you wanted, which is a lot of women want, but because they lack the skill, what they want to quickly become sort of like this place of frustration. What was that like for you in the beginning?
Well, I was blessed to be raised by a stay-at-home mom. So she had, passed on things like running a household to me. So that part didn't overwhelm me. I think what kind of caught my husband and I by surprise is we have to make all these decisions on our own now. Like we have to know what we want for our family. We had to somehow develop a little bit of a family vision to make the decisions every day for like what do we want to do to reach that end goal or that vision for our family. And we remember being so inspired by hearing someone tell us, you know what? You should rise above what your parents were. It's okay. It's okay to pursue something more and better than what you were raised in. And that really impacted us as young parents to just go for excellence, to do
Mm,
more, be bigger, better, bolder than our parents were. And I really feel like that's what kind of, how I would say, embodied our vision. So when decisions came along, we decided we wanted to choose the excellent path, not the easy path, but the path towards excellence.
okay, I'm totally fascinated, just so you know, because excellence and motherhood is often not even in the same conversation.
Yes.
I mean, I
Yes.
really, and so much of what I see in our culture, because women are just trying to figure out as they go, excellence just seems like that's not even an option. And yet, the excellence that that we are called to live is precisely what actually brings people to greater truth. And so, how did you have enough insight and wisdom? You must have had so much preparation, your skill level, to not just go bare minimum and had capacity to think beyond that. Like, I mean, Brenda, who excellence is not like even in the narrative. Just think about that.
Yeah, and I don't even know if I would have defined it as that at the time. It was probably later when I looked back and I'm like, you know what? So many of the decisions we made were because we chose excellence rather than easy. And, our tendency is to just go with the flow.
Yes.
Like I wanted a lot of children. So I think some of that is what inspired me to, I knew I was going to have to get good routine in my home. If I was going to have a lot of kids, I couldn't just let things go and and it would be managed well. I wanted to be able to achieve my dream with good daily skills and management. But I think it was just God brought so many people into our lives at the time. Looking back, I'm just so grateful for, but our hearts were open. We were seeking. We really wanted something better than what we were raised with. And so, because we were seeking, I think He brought these people into our path that would inspire us to just be generous people, to look at as our time as valuable. Look how we spend our time. We evaluated that a lot when we had to make decisions. What do we do? Do we go here? Do we get involved in this or that? And to say no was something I learned to do as a young mom, and what, make the choices for our family, not to please others. So, I mean, it's a big subject, but it just came day at a time, a little bit at a time. And looking back, I can sum it up as we did pursue excellence.
But there's so many things I could take apart, which you could
Yes, I know.
spend many different hours. What you said to me that hit me was John Maxwell has a quote: if you want to change something in your life, and I'm paraphrasing, then you have to change something in your routine, which is, you know, we have so many different women in different season. And one of the things that I actually get a lot of resistance is routine. Is that fascinating? Oh yeah, I think because it's not something that you don't get trained in routine in school, and because you had to stay home mom, and maybe it was a different, I would say, time, maybe it was a bit slower before the internet. Maybe there was a rhythm of life, just as God is a rhythm. But right now, I mean, most women are not equipped to develop the most basic foundational, uh, I would say, tool for peace and order in a home, which is a routine, right? So,
Yes.
and I can see that if you don't even have routine, you can't even get anything done.
No, no.
And so I guess my question to you is, it was that something from the very beginning you just knew you had to do, and it was non-negotiable.
I think it was, but I think I also found out the hard way because I would say yes to things. I would go here and I would go there, I'd get involved in things. And then we had to pull back and say, wait, well, we're not even getting the things accomplished at home and with our family that we wanted to. And we were used to and okay with being weird. So it wasn't super hard for me to learn to say no because I mean people just knew we were going to cut our own path. But if I was really concerned about what people thought, I would have found it so hard to say no, and I would have wanted to go to all the things and be involved. And society wants us busy. I mean, at the risk of sounding like I'm like yes, they want us busy. The enemy wants our family so busy that we cannot focus on the things that are valuable and that will build us up to be a strong family unit. The family is on attack, and that busyness, I think, is one of the main ways of getting us to break apart.
Yes, and it's almost like a subtle because busy
Yes.
in context of the secular world means successful or somehow
Mhm.
subconsciously. And so women want to feel like they're accomplished. And I think I tell women, I said, if you want a simple life, then you need more skill set and discipline. It really like what you just told me, I was writing down, I wanted to make sure I didn't forget it. Like you said, saying no, that's a skill,
Mhm.
routine. And also something caught my eye when you said you had to be open, which really is rooted in humility. That's what you're telling me is that you were seeking counsel, you were growing, you were learning, which is a skill in itself to say, oh, I need help, or I'm struggling in this. I actually need more wisdom from somebody, which, all three of this, unless we've learned it and we've had parents who taught us, you really wouldn't know how to do it. I mean, it's not, and I share this story. I had a mentor in college and I did not have somebody that gave me the foundation. And so I was, for lack of a better word, a hot mess, which saved me from being a hot mess mama, which we'll talk about in a hot minute. But
Mhm.
she told me to write my routine down every single night, even though it was the same routine, like in college. And I had to write down, it was part of my homework with, I had to write down on a sticky note. And looking back, I thought she saved my motherhood because it was just something that she taught me to do as a habit. She rewired my brain, but that became the foundation of my motherhood. But honestly, when I teach routine, I have to physically like show it to them. But then that's just one thing is knowing how to create it, but then knowing how to be firm and fluid with it, knowing how to follow through with it, knowing how to pivot, knowing how to readjust, recalibrate. I mean, there's so many skills in there that's necessary to actually protect your family from the enemy. I mean, it's
Yeah.
so profound to me that the attack on the family is really, to me, right? The attack on the family that really is attacking the woman who is underskilled.
Yeah.
And then what happens is that it becomes generational because an anxious mom who lacks a routine, and that's what I'm seeing right now, you know? And
Yes.
to me, your humility is probably the root, I would say, um, not cause. It's probably where all these comes from. Your humility to know, what do I need to know? Can you speak to me maybe about what you see as a mom right now who's maybe a seasoned mom, younger mothers? What do you see is lacking, and what are you seeing sort of in the culture for moms?
Well, you actually mentioned a couple things that I think answer that, and that is things like habits and disciplines,
Mhm.
because we tend to just get so caught up in just doing what everyone around us is doing. And if we can't learn to just step aside from some of that now and then and not worry about what people think and choose to develop habits that are consistent in our daily routine and discipline ourselves, like sometimes we don't have people to hold us accountable, but if we can just hold ourselves accountable to our own commitments,
Yeah,
it's easier done for some than others, but it's a skill. And when you develop that, you can take so much pride and satisfaction in knowing that I did what I said I was going to do on a daily, even if it's something as simple as having meals on time for your family, or
mhm,
something as simple as getting laundry done and put away at least one day a week, or
mhm.
just start with one habit
Yeah,
and master it. And you will feel so proud and know you can do more. And it will eventually become um, many, many tools in your belt that
yeah.
you will feel so capable of being a woman and a mother.
Yeah, and what you said here, even when you said tools, that's exactly what I mean is that um there's no more tools in the toolbox.
Hmm.
So we're trying to raise humans and order them to become warriors when the mothers themselves are defeated, which is
Hmm.
why I'm passionate about, skill training and mindset training, because I do think that an underskilled woman is easy to tempt.
That's so true. I love that.
Yeah, and because an undisciplined woman is an easy playground for the devil. I mean, it really is. Think about, but um, it's interesting to me because this new movement here called the Hot Mess Mama movement,
Mhm,
right?
mhm,
And it's never sat well with me, similar to this boss lady never sat well with me. And not because I don't, I have respect for people and their journey, but the movement itself,
mhm,
um, where it becomes sort of a celebration of my lack of discipline, a celebration of the lack of reverence of the beauty of motherhood. And I was just reading in my study the other day that, truth is so, it's refutable in a world that's relative.
mhm.
Logic is no longer present. Good is relative, but beauty is undisputable. And I actually, the first thing coming to my mind was that what attracted me to your page was beauty, a beautiful family, a beautiful marriage, a beautiful conversation, a beautiful woman, not the thin, whatever the magazine tells us, but a woman
Mhm.
who is filled with wisdom and discipline. And so what I often think is that, the call for having a beautiful family almost not just hinges, because it's not, we need both, and I'll jump into that, is hinges on a woman's capacity to be disciplined.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
Yes, I do. I do. And it's such a great example for your children. I mean, if you want your children to turn out to be um, good contribution to society and they don't see you attempting to be disciplined and, uh, live your life with value, then I don't think they'll pick that up either.
Yeah. And I think women suffer when they have an undisciplined life.
Yes. Oh,
It
yes.
becomes generational, and I see it impact in marriages. I see it, and for all the women that are listening, it really is a motivation to be disciplined. And I always think of discipline as like the death and resurrection, honestly. I think, and we're all called to live the death and resurrection on a daily basis. It's like you die to yourself to give rise to the new version of yourself, which is a more disciplined woman. It's a lot easier to not be disciplined, right? But in the short term, but not really in the long term,
Mhm.
right? So, sort of this hot mess mama movement, I'm just saying, um, do you ever feel as though that there needs to be a shift in that movement of a lack of reverence for motherhood? And how does that make you feel? Maybe you've never really thought about it. Um, Especially for a woman like you who is very intentional about the home she creates. How does that sort of movement make you feel as a woman, as a mother of 11?
Well, it just makes me feel like women are ungrateful for the blessing of having children. I mean, if you have kiddos and your house is a mess and you have to figure this all out, look at that as a blessing because there's people out there who wish they could have children and can't. I mean, there's just so many ways to look at it. But when you are getting to raise up little people that can make a difference in the world someday, that should be an honor. And if you are acting like it's an honor, then of course you're going to be a hot mess. You're going to complain. You're not going to love it. You're going to, the other aspect that comes into this is selfishness. I had to think of that so much when I was talking to you. We want an easy life. We want things to go our way. And when we always have to deal with a snotty nosed kid, it just feels like it's such a pain or something. But it all is just about our hearts, our perspective. If we can just stop and look at what I'm doing here, why I'm doing it, and have the right perspective, it becomes a completely different story. It's not about me, it's about them. And you will someday have an amazing life because you discipline yourself to pour into them to raise good kids. I feel spoiled rotten today to have kids that take care of me now.
Yeah.
It's just the tables are turned and it was worth every hard work that I did.
That's so beautiful. And I think I even see that just in your post, it's the investment that you've had in them.
Mhm.
It's inevitable that they're going to invest back in you. And at some degree, your life must be inspiring to them, Brenda. And I'm sure you're very humble in my experience with you, but I'm sure that, um, you know, uh, your choices has allowed them to want to be inspired entrepreneurs, to want to pursue their dreams. There's something that you're doing that they're saying, I want what mom has. And,
Mhm. Mhm.
when I teach women, I always say, if you want your children to live the faith you're living, then they have to love the life you're living. Right? Because we want to teach the faith, but it's faith and outside of our marriage, outside of our home life, outside of our, who we are as a woman. And so, how do you inspire your children to live a life of excellence as a mother, especially because you have boys? What does that look like to them?
Well, they probably don't like what it looked like so much when they were younger because
Sure.
they were just non-negotiables. That's just kind of how it was for me. I would
Got
tell them, here's the deal. This is the time you need to have your chores done by. And if they are not finished by then, here's the consequence. And when the time was up, I either gave the consequence or the reward. They could move on to the fun thing if it was done. And if it wasn't done, they got the second job or whatever the consequence was. And so they learned life has its results based on my decisions. It wasn't anything I was forcing upon them. They were moving towards these things happening in their lives based on their decisions. So I think that was part of it. The other thing is things like, the routines, the choices that we made for our family, they rarely it did it ever come up, well, so and so gets to do it, or this family does it this way, because we made them proud of the fact that you know, we do it this way because our family wants to achieve good things, big things. We want you guys to turn out to feel like you can do anything and achieve anything and be responsible kids someday. And so we're making these decisions for you. So I think, overall, it was just, there were things that were just non-negotiable. They knew it. So it just wasn't even much of an issue. They learned self-discipline pretty early based on that. And they knew we had a vision and we're working towards that. So that's why our decisions were often what they were.
You're just a model. Can I just say something? So I'm writing every skill based on this beautiful life they live in. So saying no, routine, the humility to ask for help, or um, not worrying about what people think, which is a skill in itself because we live in a comparison world. Being a woman of your word, firm boundaries, which is non-negotiable. Being grateful because you said you did, just having that gratitude. Sales skills, get to sell your children on the life of excellence. Like I say to mothers all the time, like we need sales skills, like we need it in evangelization. Like we're selling the greatest product and we have to
Yes.
sell chores and virtue to our children, and that's kind of what you're doing. And I love it because you're like, no, it's a non-negotiable,
Mhm.
right? And then you're seeing a vision, like, what is that? I think I have 10 skills. I mean, I like a matter, and I bring it back down to that, Brenda, because sometimes to live this beautiful life of motherhood where we are raising warriors, it feels overwhelming
Mhm.
to
Mhm.
so many young moms that are here. And I always say an overwhelmed woman simply means she's underskilled. And that's why I break it down to skill level, which we define in the women's school
Love
as
that.
just broken down virtues.
I
That's what
love
it is, because I remember sitting through my virtual course and my prudence justice. I'm like, how do you live prudence? So we just kind of take this down, and really, it's natural law. Like our God has sort of created the infrastructure in the world where things are, it works if we're working towards what is good, and um, so I just think this is, and that's what I want to highlight here for our audience is that it is possible if you kind of break it down to skill, because that's what you just said. But not only is it possible, I wonder if we have a duty as mothers, which is kind of what I'm sort of saying indirectly. If we are here to redeem the next generation to a life where they're fully alive, because that's what we have. We have a culture where, I mean, the divorce rate, the
Mhm.
anxiety, the depression, I mean, it's not going positive.
Mm-mm.
If we are going to almost kind of this new wave of femininity, right? And I call it a new wave because I think it is a growth and there's so many things that we can harvest and learn. Then we actually have to focus on training how to be mothers, how to be women. And what I hear you say that's so clear to me is we. I'm going to touch on this is you can't do it alone. And it sounds to me that you did this really with a great spouse and partnership. Talk to me about that foundation in building a home, your marriage of 31 years.
Well, we often joke that we couldn't be two more opposite people. Most of our general likes and dislikes, all the little things in life, we are so opposite. But when it came to the big things, we were often very much in tune.
Oh,
So I'm just so thankful for that. And I will not say my marriage was easy. It wasn't at all. We both had times where we just didn't know if we could still keep doing this.
mm,
So I don't want to make it sound like it's just been roses for us. That's why it's worked. It's worked because we worked at it. When we finally decided, we looked at each other and said, why are we fighting each other? We should be fighting the enemy together. We're on the same team.
mm,
That's when so much changed for us.
mm.
And my heart just breaks for the families who they just want to keep fighting because they want what they want. We're such selfish individuals by nature. And I think what I have seen witnessed up close with so many divorces is it really boiled down to selfishness. They weren't getting out of the marriage what they wanted, so they think leaving it is the answer. And you will never get out of it what you want if you aren't willing to fight for it and recognize there's an enemy that wants you separated and to turn around together and face that enemy and say, no, you cannot separate us. We're going to be more
Mm.
together than we ever were before on our major decisions for our family and our future. And that's what counts, not our happiness, but our family's future.
Wow, that's really profound. It's such a counterculture
Mhm.
um framework than what it's like I'm not getting what I want, and it's what we need, what we want. If you could say one thing to our audience that are listening, what would you say is the most important skill or maybe virtue that you think as a wife is so necessary to create a beautiful family as a support for your husband as a helpmate? What do you think would that be?
100% know what would say to that. Gratitude, absolute gratitude, because we always can, every day, we have things face us that don't isn't going well or lacking or that we wish was different. But what about all the things we forget about, we take for granted that we can be thankful for? And in my lowest time in my life when my health was the poorest, we had severe financial stress. We were afraid we were going to lose our house. It was the lowest point, and then I found out my dad was dying of cancer. Just snowball of things in a matter of about 3 or 4 years. In that time, I chose gratitude. I saw nothing else to conquer this because there were so many things not going well. I decided to focus on what was going well, all the blessings we did have. And we started practicing out loud as a family gratitude. And it changed so much. I feel like it saved me in that time. And it became a habit for our family to this day. Now that things are turned around, we are thriving. We have no financial struggles, but we are still grateful and we still practice gratitude out loud daily.
That's so profound. It's so scriptural. It's all,
Yes.
just it and to be grateful when you're least almost,
Mhm.
when it's least even possibly necessary. And if you were to give a woman an advice, who's a mom who wants to raise warriors, what would you say to her in context of our current culture that's really attacking family?
I would say know your vision. Know what you want out of your family for your future. Without vision, the people perish. But
Mm,
along with that, don't let that overwhelm you and seem like so big. Start with one day at a time, one skill at a time, one thing at a time. Just get what good at doing a few things
yeah.
and do them well, and so much other stuff will fall into place.
And honestly, it kind of goes hand in hand with humility.
Mm.
Because sometimes a lot of it, with what you're saying, what you're speaking, I'm saying to know that we haven't arrived, to know that we need help, to know that we can only do one skill. Like that's humbling because sometimes we want to do all 10 of them, like I want
Yes.
to just conquer the world yesterday. Rome wasn't built in one day, but especially when there's such a need, you look at your home, you're like, the laundry needs to be done, and the routine, and I need to say no to this.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, the humility to say, you know what, I can conquer one thing and I had to
Mhm.
fail and the other things, but yet I have a vision that one day I will conquer that one by one. I mean,
Yes.
the humility that is required to do, I would say, incremental discipline, right? And
Mhm.
it's so counterculture because the world wants to do it fast, quick,
Mhm.
overnight, and it maybe kind of a take home point. What was your community of women like with this that supported you? because loneliness is an international epidemic. And one of the reason, in my opinion, theory is that we don't know actually how to communicate. We think it's that we don't have, that's a factor, we're not quite as close as we used to physically. But I do think that we don't have the levels of depth and communication skill that allow us to be nourished in a meaningful conversation quick and fast. And so, what was your support system in order to create the infrastructure of warriors? And I love that, warrior children.
I did have good community. Now, I did mention saying no to a lot of things. It sounds like, oh, we were hermits because we homeschooled and we said no to doing all the activities. We just said no to too many. We still did some, of course. So we definitely have always had good friends around us, mostly via church or homeschool connections. But I also found so many of my good friends on social media. I have to admit there's blessings and curse that go with social media. But if you are seeking I'm sorry, you're there for the right purpose and
Yeah.
you're seeking to find more things like skills and inspiration, you'll find people. And in finding people online, my goal is to get to know them in person eventually. And it seems like we often found ways to connect and get together in person. And so that's just another way that I found good, influential women in my life who inspired me and motivated me to do better.
It's a really practical advice. No, it
Mhm.
really is, because sometimes you could have even, a lot of people around you, but they might not be what's best for where you are in the season of your life, which is, it is for me, especially for those that have big families. Like for me, I don't have a lot of time. And I obviously, run the school. So really my conversation is it's drive by, but there's still a need for me to have deep, meaningful friendship. And so what I even found is actually the online role models.
Mhm.
So even though I'm not even, and as a matter of fact, we found each other online, right?
Mhm.
And see
Yeah.
that, but also the role models of women that are creating those intentional infrastructure, kind of like you. I told you that from the very beginning. I'm like, Brenda, I want to learn from you because that's what I want. I want children that are going to love being home. Like that might not be something that you even think about, but that's what I actually was
Mhm.
able to harvest from your channel. And periodically I ask my children, Brenda, and I say, do you love home? I never had a home growing up. And I remember I tell my kids, I don't remember being tucked in, read a book, or asked to brush my teeth. Um, everything I tell my kids, and sometimes I get choked up when I tell them, I said, everything that you have, I never tasted for myself, which is why I work really hard, you know. Um, and so where was I going? And so much of the women right now lack that infrastructure of support system, skill level. Um, and I think that that's the recipe for us to just sort of like this hot mess mama that gives us permission to actually become a lesser version of who we are.
Mhm.
In the meantime, our children are seeing us, with no drive. So I guess if you were just say, giving, I would say, um, your son's advice on how to find the right woman. Maybe this, I hope they're not listening to this. What would you say to them and say, I would invite you to find this kind of woman as your helpmate, as your spouse in the future.
Well, I think first of all, you want to find a girl who enjoys her family, who loves being with her family. Because if she tends to not get along well with people at home, if she hasn't learned that yet, she won't learn it after marriage. So that's one thing we talk about. Another one is just that she would have some of the same family worldview and family values, obviously, that he has, or you will struggle a lot, but also one who has some skills with taking care of a home and at least can, cook a few things. She doesn't have to know all the things, but who has some self-discipline to manage her life well. When they're young, you don't expect all of that, but you have to see some of those traits, or you could be struggling a lot with learning it later.
Yeah, but discipline, I think that is something, if a woman is disciplined, it makes a hard marriage. Undisciplined, it makes a
Yeah.
very hard,
Yes.
I would say, marriage. Well, I just want to kind of just say to the audience that it's hard to find women who are very intentional about designing their home, which is what you did, and designing home where children are, you're raising a warrior, but they can go back to that infrastructure, right? Where sure, it's not perfect, but there's joy, and then there's warmth, and there's laughter, and there's struggles, and there's growth, but yet they want to go back to it. Like I said it to my son the other day, because my son's 16, and we were having hard conversation. I said, we need to have hard conversations, about certain things. And I was kind of talking about something, and I said, I don't want to necessarily make it hard for you. And he looked at me, he goes, I want you to be hard on me, Mom.
Aw.
This is my 16-year-old son. And, it dawned on me that all those years, I always say, like, a broken record is like a mustard seed, because you're just trying to, like, teach them. But it is a workout, to do it day in and day out and not see the reward that you are now reaping, but to stay with that vision in your heart and in your mind, and to trust that there's a time for sowing and there's a time for reaping. But not only that, gosh, do we need beautiful families to light this world, Brenda?
Yes. I love that you mentioned that about your son because when I, tell people some of the things that we've done for our family to get to where we are, one thing I always want to include is fun. We do fun together well. And that's why when we have to have the hard conversations or the hard work or something, it goes over better because we've already had fun. We do a good mix of fun things together as well as the hard things together. And I think that just brings a good balance. And it's what makes them want to come back and enjoy home because they know there'll be some of each.
So I just want to outline, if you haven't followed Brenda, you can go to her page. When I say fun, what I saw was paragliding. No, was it paragliding? I
Yes.
mean, literally, I'm seeing this on social media, which is what caught my attention. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, we need to do something fun like this. Like, it would be so amazing to be able to provide that. And that's why I asked you, I was like, oh, you live in a farm, which obviously, everybody's kind of different, but it is so true. Like, laughter and joy it's like a glue, and especially it's a glue when you have to discipline them. It's like strategic.
Mhm.
It's so well, I'm coming to a close here, and I there's so many more questions, honestly, because I feel like I haven't even, our audience knows that we usually talk about the whole arena. We've talked about your relationship and your friendship. But one last advice I would say to a woman who wants to live her faith and honor her family and her freedom. Faith, family, and freedom. What would
Oh,
your
wow. That is huge. I would say just be true to yourself. Sometimes we just get hard on ourselves because we see our failures, but give yourself some grace
Mhm.
and know that you're never going to be perfect. Your family's never going to be perfect, but learn to just enjoy the journey. Um, love who you are, who God created you to be, and know that in that you will become a more lovely person by enjoying the life that you have, making the best of it, and constantly trying to just do a little better every day.
There's even tenderness and humility in that advice, Brenda.
Oh,
Well, well, thank you. Unfortunately, we're out of time. Brenda, where can they find you? Just so that they have the exact place to find you, because I know our listeners would want to just watch your life and model for that.
well, I'm on Instagram and Facebook. Instagram, I'm brenda.k.martin. I'm just Brenda Martin on Facebook. But Instagram is where I share a lot of my family's journey and stories.
It's so beautiful. You have to watch it. That's really what brought me. Beauty is irrefutable. And
Oh,
that's
thank
what I
you.
saw in your family. So thank you so much, Brenda, for this time that we have together. I hope to have you again and pick this one skill that I have like 10 skills here and break it down. So thank you. And until the next time.
You're welcome.
If you like this practical life training in the Women's School, click subscribe so you can get access to more of our practical life training. Also, comment below and let us know what you think so we can hear from you. Don't forget to like this video and share it, because our vision here in the Women's School is to give you practical life training to help you become who you were created to be for such a time as this.